Hello. This is something I've been working on for upwards of 4 months now, and I'm really excited to finally be able to share it with everyone. This is RNG manipulation in Spelunky Classic. So in this video, we'll have broadly 3 topics. First, how randomness works in Spelunky Classic, then how we can manipulate it, and then what this means for the leaderboards on Mossranking. So Spelunky Classic was made in GameMaker, and so what we're really asking when we say how does randomness in Spelunky work is we're asking how does randomness work in GameMaker. So in GameMaker, when you want a random number, you use the random function. So you use the random function, you use a number x, and that'll give you a random decimal number between 0 and x, including 0, not including x. So for example, if you use a teleporter in Spelunky, that'll teleport you 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 blocks. That's 5 options, so we want to pick between 5 options. So we use random 5. So that'll give us a number between 0 and 5. So for example, that might be 2.6786. And then Spelunky will round that down to the nearest whole number, which in this case would be 2, and then add the minimum result, in this case 4, because you want to be teleported at least 4 blocks. So in this case, that'd be 6. So in this case, you'd teleport 6 blocks. So that's how GameMaker Random works on a basic level, but this is how it actually works. It uses this formula. So you use randomx, it'll return this number times the seed, which I'll explain in a minute, but for right now, that's just some number between -2 billion and +2 billion. It'll multiply by the number you asked for, and then it'll add this number, x plus 1 divided by 2 to the 32. And then it'll be mod x, which will divide by x and then gives you the remainder, which basically turns it into a number between 0 and x. So I'll do an example. So random 5 with a seed of 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll use this. So this number, and then seed is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then our x is 5 here. And that'll get you this number, 193.6. Then this part of the formula, our x is 5, so plus 1, then divided by 2 to the 32. That'll give you this tiny number. And then you add these two together to get this. And then you take the mod 5. So you divide by 5 and then you get the remainder. So that in this case, that'll be 3.6, etc. And then if we're Spelunky and we want to make this into a teleport distance, we would round this down to the nearest number, whole number, which is 3, and then add 4 to get us 7. So if you used a teleporter with a seed of 1, 2, 3, 4, you would teleport 7 blocks. So I did kind of brush over what the seed was, and I'll explain that. After the function returns the number, it'll then change the seed so that you get a different number next time you ask for a random number. So it'll change it using this formula. It'll take the seed it already had, multiply it by this number, and then add 1, and that'll be done with a mod 2 to the 32 this time. So say, for example, we start with a seed of 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we multiply by this number, and then we add 1. And now this mod 2 to the 32, it's not a true mod 2 to the 32. What it does in this case is keep it within the bounds of a signed 32-bit integer. So we can see that visually by translating this into binary. And then 32 bits, so that means we ignore everything after the first 32 digits. And then we look at the first digit here, and we see if this is a 0, then it'll be positive. If it's a 1, it'll be negative. So in this case, it's a 1, so it'll be negative. And you translate this back to decimal, and you get this. So in summary, calling random x with a seed of y does 2 things. It'll give you a number using this formula, which will be the random value that the game will use. And it'll change the seed using this formula, which will be the seed that is used the next time random gets called. So how do we use that? Well, if we can find out what our seed currently is, then we can use that to find all the random events that'll happen next, or rather the other outcomes. So how do we find the random seed? Well, so this is the formula for determining seeds. This mod 2 to the 32 means that there will be 2 to the 32 options. 2 to the 32 possible seeds, that's about 4 billion. So how do we narrow that down? Well, say we use a teleporter, and it teleports us 7 tiles. Well, that means that out of these 2 to the 32, we can narrow that down to about 1/5 of them, because there are 5 options and each option is equally likely. So only about 1/5 of them will result in teleporting us 7 blocks. So out of those 4 billion, we get to about 860 million. So if we do it again, well then only 1/25 of seeds will result in teleporting us 4 blocks and then 7 blocks. So I got this down to 170 million. We do it again, we get down to 34 million. You might see where this is going. If we do this 14 times, we get down to about 1 possible seed only that will result in this exact sequence of teleport distances. But this is an average, so it might be 0, it might be 1, it might be 2 or 3. So if we do this 4 more times to get 18, then we can be pretty certain that the seed we used, or that we started with, is the only one that will result in teleporting us 7 blocks, and then 4 blocks, and then 5 blocks, etc. So once we know that our seed is the only one that will result in this exact sequence, then we can plug that sequence into a program that checks every single seed and sees if it'll teleport you this amount of blocks every single time. So how do we use that? Well, say we have a crate and we want to get a jetpack from it. Well, say we know our seed is 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we can check if you open a crate with seed 1, 2, 3, 4, then, well, a crate just calls random a bunch of times, so we can plug it into the formulas, and we get that when you open a crate with seed 1, 2, 3, 4, you get a matic. Well, we don't want a matic, we want a jetpack. So what if we teleport once and then open the crate? Well, if we teleport once, that changes our seed to this, and then you open a crate, you get a different thing because you have a different seed when you open it. Well, we don't want a parachute, we want a jetpack. So what if we teleport twice instead? Well, you get ropes, or 3 times you get compass. But if you check enough numbers, eventually you find that if you teleport 256 times, it'll get your seed to this, and then you open a crate with that seed, you get a jetpack. So essentially, we can choose what item to get from crates. But you do see that just like last time with finding the seed, again, you just have to do a whole lot of math to find this. Like, each one of these teleports is, you have to do a bunch of addition, bunch of multiplication, a bunch of division, and obviously you don't want to do all that by hand. So, introducing qCaves. This is a user-friendly, all-in-one RNG cracker and manipulator tool for Spelunky Classic. I realize it doesn't look beautiful, but what it lacks in graphic design, it makes up for in utility. So qCaves, what it can do is it can find your current RNG seed by having you tell it your teleport distances. And then once you find your seed, you can manipulate the loot that you get from crates, chests, and pots. And you can also manipulate the levels that you get. Okay, so I'm not going to demonstrate every single part of qCaves in this video, but I would like to show off the part that took the most work and the part that I think is the coolest, which is manipulating level generation. So this is a modified copy of Spelunky. It's mostly vanilla, except that I give myself the ability to spawn in teleporters, because they can take a little bit to reset for. So if you look over at qCaves here, I've already found what seed I'm at. So I want to manipulate what level 2 I get, because I'm on level 1 right now. So I want to simulate level 2. I'm not going to go into depth on these, but there will be a tutorial video about how to use it in the description. So right now all these settings are correct. And then, so I'm going to say I want a level 2 that has a damsel and an altar so that I can get started on my Kali favor quickly. And I want a jetpack because I don't have a jetpack right now. And I want a Jedi because I want to go to the City of Gold. So these are all the settings I want. So I'm going to press run. We wait a second. And there we go. So 50 increments, I'm not going to worry about this part right now. That means I'm going to have to use the teleporter 50 times. And then these tell where the jetpack will be in the level. So I'm going to go ahead and teleport 50 times in a row right now. I'll probably speed it up in the video because that'll take a minute. Okay, so I've just teleported 50 times. So now if I go to level 2, I should have a jetpack, a damsel, an altar. I think that's all we asked for. Well, there's the jetpack. And then should also have a damsel and an altar somewhere on this level. There's the Jedi, yeah, forgot we asked for that. That looks like an altar down there. And there's the damsel. So yeah, we just manipulated what this level 2 would have on it. Okay, so now that you know how all this RNG manipulation works, what are its applications? So the most immediate and obvious effects will be on score categories, as evidenced by me breaking the score no major glitches world record by a significant margin. Manipulating chests, crates, and pots and levels is all very useful in score categories. And while it could be useful in speed categories also, it just takes too much time to do to be useful in those categories right now. And while I do have a few ideas for how to help speedruns, I think right now speed categories are unaffected. So what does this mean for Mossranking? First of all, I'm not a moderator. Ultimately, it's up to them. But right now, I am the most knowledgeable person on this, so I think my opinion is valuable at least. So I see really three options. You could ban RNG manipulation completely. I don't like this idea as it makes the strategy that I think is very cool kind of useless, because why would you be using RNG manipulation if not to submit something to Mossranking? You could allow RNG manipulation completely without limits. I don't like this idea either. I think it's unhealthy for the game if to submit to, especially if this makes it over to speed categories, if you need to use an outside tool to compete at a high level for like every single category. Brings us to what I think the most realistic option is to split leaderboards into allowing and disallowing RNG manipulation. If it makes its way over to speedruns again, it could potentially double the number of categories on Mossranking, which you could see as a good thing or a bad thing. One case that I do want to bring up specifically is score. You could say that using RNG manipulation and infinite matic is equivalent in the sense that using either of those strategies just turns your run into a score run instead of a score no major glitches run. I think this is somewhat of a reasonable option. Both of them essentially have you use the same held item the whole run. They increase the amount of score that you can reasonably get. They take just a while to do in general. But I don't like that option, honestly, because I think that RNG manipulation does beat out infinite matic in, being useful for score runs. And so I think that uh, if you just lumped these two into the same category, it would kind of make infinite matic extinct as an option. But that is an option that I think is worth mentioning. So that has to do it for the video. There's going to be some links to things in the description. You can download qCaves, and there will be a tutorial for how to use it. Thanks for watching. This has been about 4 months of work, so I'm happy to share it with everyone.